Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Masters Toronto continues. Sentinels get their first victory on the board, and it's a big drama emerging as a result. With SEN now on the verge potentially of qualifying for the playoff stage. They're looking to see what their opponent could potentially be if they make it to that point. G2 Esports, they called out Sentinels and said, yeah, if they want a free win, they'll pick Sentinels if they get the choice to do so when it matters in the playoff stage, if that is a possibility. Zellsis replies and says, what are you guys talking about? We smoked you before, we'll smoke you again, and we'll knock you out of the tournament when it matters as well. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Starting, of course, here, this is Nat on his way to Canada, and he made it now. So, yeah, he got his visa. He says he's covered in. He finally made it out there in Toronto, and as we'll see here from this video right about here, that after missing the first series, Nat has made it. Now, look, he's probably pretty damn tired, right? Like, there's a lot obviously been going on for Nat over the last few days. The stresses of getting this whole situation sorted, finally figuring it all out, turning up to Toronto now finally, and yeah, he looks pretty knackered. It's obviously been a long journey for him, and fair enough, but he has at least a day or so to get a bit of preparation in for, you know, his series that he's going to play. Fair play to Penny. I think Penny stepped in, did a solid job. I know that some would say, oh, well, you know, maybe Penny should stay, but realistically, they're not going to do that, right? They're going to play with the team that they had. How far can they go now Nats is back? I think it's certainly a really big deal for the team, and given the way that MIBR looked yesterday, you know, you absolutely cannot count that out of the realms of possibility either. The Liquid could potentially make a bit of a run. Do wonder what happens. Like, imagine they win the tournament. They're not going to win the tournament, but imagine they did. You know, what happens to Penny? Does Penny come up there on the main stage, collect a trophy as well as part of the team for the tournament? I don't know, maybe that would be pretty cool to see, honestly, if it happens as time goes on. But realistically, you know, fair play to Penny, stepped in for a series, did a commendable job, but it wasn't good enough for Liquid, and now Nats is back to kind of reclaim the throne, and we'll see how that's going to look in a few minutes' time, who they may or may not be playing. This, just to interestingly note, it was actually this day last year when Gen.G won Pacific's first trophy, and they took down the victory at Masters Shanghai. You know, we're here a year on, and we're talking about whether they could do the same thing here in Toronto, because their start yesterday was certainly very impressive indeed. And we're going to pretty much get right into it, right? So we had two big series going on yesterday. Sentinels, of course, played Wolves. We'll get to that one in a second. Zellsis Buzzcut was going hard as always, and we'll see the post-game interviews here in a couple of minutes' time with what he had to say about the situation as well. But the first series that was fascinating was Gen.G MIBR. On paper, Gen.G were favourites, but MIBR were, you know, considered at least to have a decent chance in this series. Text just says, yeah, MIBR's got Aspas, great, but Gen.G's got me, so that goes pretty hard. And then he says, I do respect Aspas. I think he's a top-level player, but I think my teammates are just as good as him. So it was a pretty nice little kind of prelim to the series, let's say. But Gen.G absolutely demolished, like, MIBR this series. I mean, these numbers, I mean, I want to say they do it justice. I think they probably do the series justice, but it honestly felt even worse than this at times. Verno had a nice little 1v3 in there, but apart from that, 21 and 27. How often do you see Aspas go negative 17 in a series? 12 and 29. I mean, Texture just absolutely shut him down. The sunset was 13-5 on MIBR's pick. This was the map where at least Verno was putting up a bit of a fight. Foxy9, you know, you guys know that I rate Fox9. He had a great map here on the Deadlock. And then the Haven was an absolute demolition job, 13-1. I mean, like, we don't see series like this very often. 13-5, 13-1. Artsan has 3 frags. Texture has 19. You know, it was all over the place. But 13-1, we've seen a couple of these already, and we've seen maybe more of them lately than we had done before. I know there's some debate on why that is. I think there is an argument to talk about the meta, the way that the meta has changed going into this tournament, and the other factors in play as well. I think teams in general over time have got better at, you know, kind of snowballing momentum, using ultimates and saving things and getting ready for future rounds. So, you know, I think that, you know, we see, it's not like both teams aren't capable of doing this, but I think we see a few more blowouts nowadays just because teams have got really good at kind of maintaining the momentum. Certainly the top teams have, and we're starting to see that a little bit more, which is, you know, good or bad depending on your perspective. But the other big series, Sentinels Wolves. MIBR dropped down to the 0-1 side, and crushingly so, but as I say, the map count doesn't really matter. Like, you know, MIBR could have lost 16-14, 17-15. It wouldn't have mattered. Fundamentally, they still lost, and that's, you know, important if they want to try and actually make it through to the playoffs anyway. Zellsis, here he is, and then there's Zels, you know, Mr. Zeka in the bottom right-hand side. They've played about a few things with the UI, with the HUD, and some of it's worked, some of it hasn't necessarily gone exactly to plan. it was a nice little relationship here, bonding between, Wolves, Sufat, BB, and Zellsis on the other side of the stage. But of course, like, at the end of the day, they had a series to play and they had a series to win. And look, Sentinels played pretty well. I think Wolves put up a pretty commendable fight in this series, all things considered. This was a fascinating series going in, but Wolves, they looked pretty respectable compared to what we could have seen elsewhere. Lyasaur, though, bit of a shambles from him. Sentinels did get the dub. Map 1 was on the split. We know that that's a map that Sentinels really like, but clearly Wolves like it as well because they picked it into Sentinels. You don't see that very often, but honestly, it kind of worked. Their attacking side, they went up 8-4. Unfortunately, Lyasaur on the Omen towards the end of the game wasn't really delivering, and then, yeah, he just had a tough time, Lyasaur, internationally. It was the same story on the Lotus as well. Like, Lyasaur in region domestically has been pretty respectable. Like, if we look at some of his numbers here for the past, let's say 60 days, his Omen, to be fair, whenever he uses it, has been pretty shocking. His other agents tend to be better if he's on the Vice, if he's on the Cypher, but whenever they put him on the Omen, he doesn't really have a great time historically, and, past 90 days, you can see pretty similar numbers here as well. So, domestically, Lyasaur's been pretty good, but for whatever reason, when he's on the Omen, he doesn't have the greatest time at all, and the same story was true here against Sentinels yet again. So, yeah, that was a rough one for him. Sentinels eventually get the map 2 win 13-8 to close out the series in a nice little 2-0 and advance through the rest of the tournament. But Wolves, they honestly can, I think, take a lot away from the series. Sentinels, I think it was a really good series for them because they played a valiant competitor, right? Like, it was not a walk in the park, and sometimes you want a nice easy series, but I think sometimes you want a bit of adversity early on in the tournament to get your run together, and as Sen say, look, they didn't have much bite. They did have some bite, but frankly not enough in the end. So lots of reaction to this before we talk about some of the drama. As John QT says, 2-0 versus Wolves, first games are never easy. They played really well. Great atmosphere in the arena. Appreciate the Sen City making us proud. And Sufat BB says, sorry we didn't win. We'll try our best to get them back the next game. We'll work harder in the next game. Thought it was kind of nice to see some pictures that he took with various pro players here. Just, enjoying the relationships that these guys are kind of fostering. And as he says, having met Zekken before in Asia, in the server, we'd expect to meet in Masters, and we finally did. He is really strong. Even if I read him, I can't stop him, he says. I thought it was really nice words, to be honest, and fair play to Wolves putting up a very commendable fight indeed, and maybe they can do some damage in the lower side of the Swiss stage as well. Zellsis gives some credit to the crowd, and, I mean, look at this guy, always delivering, to be fair, delivering on and off the server, because there was a bit of drama a couple of days ago now when we saw G2 have the pre-game press conferences, and they were asked the question as the #1 seed from their region, if you get to choose who you're going to play, who are you going to pick? And Jonah P kind of talks about some of the teams that he thinks could qualify and says, look, seriously, we would take Heretics because we think they're the team that we could beat the easiest. If we want to have a good time, we'll pay Paper X. But if we want a free win, of course, trolling / being, joking around a little bit, but also being a little bit spicy for the timeline. If we want a free win, we're taking the Sentinels dub. So Zellsis, of course, knew that this was coming, and he clapped back and, made a few very interesting remarks on this, to be fair, because I thought, his words were quite well chosen and quite precise to say, look, yeah, we know there's a rivalry here with G2, but all they do is talk about us, and yeah, sure, they beat us in the finals, but we beat them slightly earlier on to make it to this tournament. We definitely can do so again, and if they do pick us, which I hope that they do, then we're going to eliminate them from the tournament.
But we want a free win, Sentinels. If we want to have fun, Paper X. If we're very serious, Heretics. So I don't know. It depends how we feel.
Sentinels.
Oh, the free win.
This is Michael Char from VLR.GG. My question is for Zellsis, but it's really for anyone on the table who wants to answer. During the press conference on Friday, G2 was talking about which team they'd want to face because they get to pick their opponent. And G2 mentioned that out of all the opponents, the freest win would be Sentinels. Do you have any response to that?
I've been planning for this question since I saw that, and I just fully blanked. I just think it's so funny that they call us free every time, but we're always in their mouths. So, I don't really know what more to say. We beat them to make Toronto. Congrats. They lucked out on the grand final, but they should have. They got second at Bangkok. They should be one of the best teams, if not the best team, and they look like they're struggling. So, we'll see when it comes to playoff time. Hopefully they do select us and we can eliminate them.
Wow.
I gotta let that breathe for a second.
Yeah.
So spicy stuff, and now I'm absolutely hoping that Sentinels do indeed make it, and then we shall see from there what the bracket is going to look like. But Sentinels, they have really the best possible draw they could have got here, because Paper X played Gen.G. That's the next game. This happens today, and it's a tough game to call this one. Wow. I mean, yeah, you can see by the odds here, like it's basically just neck and neck. Who's the favourite for this series? Nobody really seems to know. Gen.G, they played phenomenally yesterday, but to be fair, so did Paper X. They both crushed their rivals, MIBR and Heretics respectively. Now they play one another. They play pretty different styles. Obviously a bit of history here as well. I think I would slightly lean Gen.G's way, but yeah, I'm going to give it to Gen.G in a 2-1. And then Sentinels BLG. I think Sen can handle business here. Obviously people are going to talk about redemption for FNS and all this. Will BLG get a map? I don't think so. I think Sentinels will do the same as they did to Wolves and handle it 2-0. But also if you're Sentinels, there is some pressure on because, you know, you win this series. You've got the best possible draw. If you lose this to BLG, then really you're gonna, you know, your next game at the decider is going to be more challenging, you would well imagine. So this is the chance for Sentinels. I think they'll get the job done. But then tweet your thoughts in the comments. And then the loser side, Heretics will play Wolves tomorrow, and then Liquid will play MIBR. Which for Liquid, I think they'll be pretty happy with, really, given that, you know, on paper, MIBR's performances yesterday was, you know, absolutely horrific. So very much enjoy your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Hi, my question's for all of Sentinels. What does Ye's aura feel like, and is it different than other players you're facing him, since he's the GOAT?
It's unfathomable, really. I mean, it's hard for me to even get on the game when I know we're going to be playing against him. But that's just for me. I don't know how you guys feel.
I mean, I feel like he's not even here.
You guys
Can you-
feel him?
Can you describe it?
Describe what,
Feeling?
him not being here?
His aura.
His aura? Well, I can't. He's not here. He has no aura.
That's not true.
Okay, all seriousness, I think Ye has been playing really well, and I'm happy for him. I love the guy. I've been on several teams with him, so I mean, he's definitely got some puppy aura, but I mean, yeah,
He ain't the big dog that he used to
he
be.
ain't the big dog. He's a puppy
Yes,
now.
he's the GOAT.
Eh?